We're here today recording the interview of Larry Peters. This interview is being conducted by Eric Whitty and Adrian Dakota Hill from the Wright State University Veterans Voices Project. Also in attendance is John Granata. This interview is being recorded at VFW Post 3283 in Huber Heights, Ohio. It is approximately 4 p.m. on June 24th, 2014. Okay, Larry, to begin, where and when were you born?
I was born in Marion, Ohio, 22nd of November, 1940.
Okay. What was your family like?
Well, my mom, dad, was very close to my grandmother and dad's sister. So basically it was us. And we had 2 brothers and a sister, so just like any normal family back then.
Okay. Were either of your parents in the military?
No, Dad was drafted, but he had a hernia. Before they could get that cleared up, it was over. So
Okay.
So he never went in.
Did any of your siblings also join?
Yeah, my brother joined also, and he was Air Force, and my little brother joined, and he retired from the Air Force.
So all 3 brothers were in the Air
All
Force?
3 of us were in the Air Force. 2 retired.
Okay. What made you yourself and your brothers, what inspired you guys to enlist?
I don't know. I guess seeing some of the war movies. I don't know if you ever saw the Victory at Sea series, but it was on, and we'd watch them, and it just kind of sort of, I get out of school, maybe I should do something like that, you know. And the more I looked at it, the more I liked Air Force, so that's where I went. And I said my 2 brothers followed me, so.
So you were the oldest of the 3?
Yes, I'm the oldest.
Okay. So real quick, if you could just give us a brief rundown of your military service.
Okay, I went in November of '59. Went through 4 weeks of basic training. Back then, it was 11 weeks long, but those of us that qualified for a technical career field, they gave us 4 weeks at Lackland. And in my case, I went to Shepherd after the 4 weeks to start tech school. And so on A shift, we'd go to school from 6 to noon, and then on the afternoon, we did basic training until we had our required time in for the training. From there, I was trained on the flight control system for the Atlas missile. And from there, I went to Vandenberg Air Force Base. Back in the old days, we had a lot of manpower. They were authorized a boss and 4 people in the lab, or the shop I was sent to. We had the NCOIC and 14 people. I got a day off just to go get a haircut once. So, you know, that's how they was trying to find things for us to do. But then they cross-trained me into PMI, Precision Measurement Instruments, and I went to work in their laboratory as a augmentee as such, and I liked the work. I ended up going to school for PMI, and the rest of my career was there. So, in Vandenberg, I went to Lockbourne, which is now Rickenbacker. I got out, went back home. That's where I met my wife, come back in, and I was in active reserve while I was out. Mm-hmm. But I come back in and retired in December of '86. So I spent tours not only Vietnam, but Panama. Spent 3 years down there, spent a little over 3 years in Italy and 2 years in the Azores.
Okay. Just out of curiosity, how long were you out when you got out in between?
I got out the first part of November and went back in September. So I wasn't out a year.
A little less than a year. Okay. Okay. Well, let's talk a little bit about the early days. So you enlisted straight into the Air Force.
Yes.
So what was leaving for basic training like?
I don't know. I really looked forward to it. Maybe that's strange, but I did. I heard a lot of stories, but It was nothing like I imagined. I guess maybe I was prepared for it, and I just kind of enjoyed it, to be honest with you.
So what were you imagining, and what did it end up being like?
Oh, a lot of BS, you know, picking on guys and so, because they do try to beat you down and then build you up, mold you up into a cohesive unit. And with me, I was just ready to do it. Well, there was a bunch of us that was that way. We just had a good time going through basic.
And so you said your technical school was at the same time as basic training?
After 4 weeks of basic.
After 4 weeks. So what was technical school like?
That was interesting because it was a secret career field. And they had us in a concrete building, clear in the center of the building, no windows. Lights went out, it was dark. So, but I assume they thought that was helped secure everything. And they taught us a lot about the missile range and et cetera and so forth. Then we went to the parade in downtown Wichita Falls, Texas, and they had to run one on a wagon they brought through, and all the information they told us was secret was right there on the placard. So it was
They brought one what on the wagon?
the Atlas missile.
They
They had
ran
it on the frame. They put it in the parade.
Huh.
Yeah, it was a steel balloon is what it was, because it was pressurized when they had it on the stand. But when they had it down on the carrier, it had to be fastened at the bottom of the missile and the top, and they kept stress on it so it wouldn't collapse.
Huh.
So,
So before you got selected to work on the Atlas missile, were there background checks? Did you have to do any special tests?
I didn't. You had filled out your paperwork, and then they did the background checks to get you a secure. Well, like I said, I had secret clearance there.
So I'm curious, how did that feel as a young man being assigned on a nuclear missile?
It made you feel kind of important, you know, to be assigned to learn on it and to take care of it. Because, well, back then, you know, at that time, missiles were just new. They were just coming into being. But yeah, the Air Force makes you grow up quick, really. Well, I assume all military does, but the Air Force, I know.
I imagine especially having that kind of power.
Oh yeah, it makes you.
Were you guys aware of, I'm not really sure where I'm going. Were you aware of nuclear war, the possibility?
Oh, absolutely.
Knew what they were capable of at the time?
Yes, we did. We've seen them pictures of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. So.
Wow. Just, how old were you when you got assigned to that? I went in the 1st of November. I turned 19 on the 22nd. So this would be about a year later. I was working on the missile. About 20 years old.
Yep.
So you talked about this a little bit, but how did you adapt to the military life? Was it a big change for you, or?
Oh, it's definitely a big change, but you just kind of follow the rules. You know, you've got certain laws you have to follow as far as your code of uniforms, you know, and you're supposed to be somewhere to do something. You go there on time. I mean, if you just budget your time, no problem. And I still do that. I hate to be late for an appointment.
Okay. Before we get ahead to Vietnam, so you were working on the Atlas missiles during the Cuban Missile Crisis?
No, I was not. They had cross-trained me into the precision measurement field.
You had
Rather
already
than-
switched over after that. Okay. But coming from the field of being a technician on the Atlas missiles, what was your impression of the Cuban Missile Crisis?
It was a little scary, to be honest with you, because I was in the school for precision measurement when that's happened, and they set up TVs out in the hall, canceled class, brought everybody out to watch President Kennedy explain what was going on.
Did people who knew what you had done ask, because you know more about nuclear crises than most Americans at that time were?
Well, the precision measurement instrument field was, sort of an elite field. When I went in, you had to be an E4 pay grade and come from a related electronic field to get into the field at that time. So almost everybody I was going to school with was missiles or B-52s, and carrying nuclear weapons, you know what I mean, or munitions, however you want to say it. But
Were you able to tell your family what your job was? Did they know?
oh yeah, they knew what we did. But like I said, on the island, it was just flight control. That controlled the flight. They had a separate system for guidance, which is where they programmed where it was going to. So,
Okay, so describe your job with the precision instruments.
precision instruments, well, that's the field of metrology. Metrology is a science of measurement. So if you measure something, what you measure it with is what we worked on. So you want to measure voltage, we did the multimeters. And we repaired them, calibrated them, tell you how good they were, because you can't measure anything exact. I mean, that's impossible. So all your measuring devices that come out have a plus or minus tolerance on them. And precision means it's pretty close. And some of the things we did is just amazing, you know. But at the point when I first started in the career field, I didn't know how important it was. It covers everyday life. You go down, you get gas down here at the gas station. You see them seals on there from Carl, Keith. They've come out and they measured that that gas is the right amount coming out there within so much tolerance. So it goes into your everyday life anyway. Kilowatt hours on your electric meters, those have to be calibrated. Like I said, we didn't do those. We did the equipment they used to do those.
Okay, so you were calibrating testing equipment?
Yes.
Okay. How did the equipment you guys were working on compare to civilian versions?
Actually, most of the equipment we had was civilian version. Hewlett Packard, Tektronix, a bunch of them companies.
Okay.
Yeah.
So someone in the civilian world doing a similar job, would they have to be an engineer or?
There are a lot of engineers doing it, yes. But no, you don't need to be an engineer. You just got to know what you're trying to do. Because what you're trying to do really with metrology is you want traceability from the international standards down through the Air Force or United States national standards to your equipment and to the labs based around the world, really. So if you know those basics and how to do that, the rest is just knowing how to repair the equipment and operate it.
Okay. So you said you served in the Azores, Canal Zone, Vietnam. Where did you go after school? After the precision instruments school?
I went to Rickenbacker.
Rickenbacker.
Well, I was Lockbourne at that time, but it was Rickenbacker. And I spent just about a year there, and that's when I got out and went back home.
Where is that?
Columbus.
Columbus, yes.
So then, where did you go when you came back in after Rickenbacker?
Well, that was the thing. My wife, I run across her uncle at one night in one of the bars, and he was with the Air Force recruiter. We got to talking, and he said, "I'll come back in." He said, "I'll give you basic choice." Well, my dad, he never served, but he didn't want me to get out when I did. We'd watch him fishing. He loved hunting fish. We'd watch him fishing shows there in the winter with the snow blowing outside, and he said, they got bases in Florida. So the recruiter said, give you base of choice, we'll come back in. And we went to Eglin Air Force Base, Florida, in Fort Walton. And Dad never did come down, but from there we went to Panama, so
And what did you do in Panama?
the same job.
Doing the precision instruments testing?
And in Panama, we had what they called a transportable field calibration unit. It was a forerunner to the actual unit. And we would go down to a part of the foreign aid program. We would go down to South American countries and calibrate their Air Force standards for them. So I got to see quite a few countries down there.
Interesting. So the U.S. Air Force would send you to other countries' air forces to help get their
Right.
equipment up to standards? Or
Yes.
did you ever train personnel from other air forces?
Oh, yeah. When you worked there with them, you'd train them and show them what you was doing and how to do it. Yeah.
Which air forces did you work with?
Oh, Ecuador, Colombian, Argentine, Brazil. I think those are the only ones I worked with, but we covered Chile, Ecuador, Peru, Paraguay, Uruguay, all the South American countries.
And all their militaries were being supported by the U.S. military?
Oh, we also did Central American countries too, but I didn't get to go to any of those.
Okay. What about the Azores? What did you do there?
The same thing, just calibration. Of course, there I had some rank then. I'd made master sergeant then, so I was a lab chief. So I was responsible for all of it. So,
And was that at a U.S. base
oh yes,
in the Azores?
the Azores. It's Lodges Field, Azores, Lodges Field Air Base. That's one of the unique bases in the military. Because at Lodges Field, the Air Force took care of the grounds. We had no aircraft assigned. The Navy did the flying mission, and the Army took care of the ships. Because they had a couple of LSTs when the ships come into harbor and couldn't get all the way into the harbor. The LSTs would go out and they'd offload into them. Those were Army. So it was unique in that respect.
Huh.
And we were basically, Air Force was basically there as a gas station, repair station in the middle of the Atlantic.
So that was in the days back before mid-air refueling, probably. They had to.
They were getting mid-air in those days. But it was right around the start of it.
Okay.
It was in progress, but they still stopped there for gas.
Quite a few of the older aircraft had to.
Yeah. Well, these were the 141s they was flying then. So.
Okay.
And C-130s. Yeah, C-130s.
Okay. So, when did you find out you were going to Vietnam?
We spent Panama, the tour in Panama. I went to Keesler from there. And I spent just about a year there. I found out I was going to Vietnam. And my wife was pregnant with our second boy. I didn't know what it was at the time, but I could have got out of the assignment because she was pregnant. But she said she wanted to go back to Marion to have the kid anyhow, so well, I'm going to have to do a remote tour, so I might as well get it out of the way, and that's why we went. So just a mutual decision between the two of us.
How did you feel knowing you were going?
I don't know. I didn't really want to go. I don't think anybody wants to go to a situation like that. But then again, it's your duty. You know, you signed up for it. My time came, so I went. And surprisingly enough, it was one of the easiest duties where I was, or where I served. Because the rest of the Air Force, you're going through all kinds of inspections, operational readiness inspections, this and that. When you're actually over there doing it, you don't have all them inspections because I'm doing the job. So as far as outside pressure, there was none really. We all worked together and got the job done.
What year did you go to Vietnam?
I went there October of 70, come back in 71.
Okay. And what base were you stationed at?
Ton Son, just outside of Saigon.
Okay. So that was after Tet Offensive. So
Yes, it was.
Was there any anxiety about that? Any concerns?
Well, no, there was a lot of times. You go into latrines and there were no covers on the backs of the commodes. I found that was because the Vietnamese, we could be into Viet Cong, and put hand grenades on them, you flush the toilet, pull the pin.
Really?
Things like that, yeah.
Did that happen while you were there? Did you
No.
hear that?
It was already happened before I got there. So, now there are a lot of things like that.
So, other than that, what would you say was the biggest concern for you being in Vietnam?
The biggest concern I had was the rockets. They'd fire those in. We had helmets and flak jackets. You kept them wherever you was going to be between 2 o'clock and 4 o'clock in the morning, because that's normally when they hit us. In my case, I was off work. I'd be in bed then. So you keep me near the bed, and they had a big PA system all over the base. And when the alarms would come off, I think, this is giant voice. Ton Son under a rocket attack, take cover. And they'd repeat that over and over, you know. And you grab your helmet, put your flak jacket on, and sit in the corner. And listen to them come in and hope you didn't get hit. It's kind of helpless feeling, but
So you'd sit in the corner of your barracks? You didn't have a bunker to get into, or?
well, they had bunkers, but they found out when people would run and jump in the bunkers, the Viet Cong would throw in glass, broken glass, razor blades, that type of stuff. They was getting more injuries from that than just sitting in a corner.
How were the Viet Cong getting on the base?
It's hard to tell them from a regular Vietnamese, you know. So I don't know how.
So did you guys let civilians on the base then?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
That's part of the status of forces agreement over there. We had 2 mama sons took care of our clothes right there in our barracks. So how whatever clearances they went through, I have no idea.
So, did your job, you were still doing the calibration, the testing of equipment. Did your job ever take you off the base?
On occasion, yes. We'd go to one of the other bases, like Benoit, where we're normally went, because we'd go up and do some of their equipment in place, especially scales and things like that. And when you left base, the only time we had weapons over there is when we left the base to go officially. We could take a pass and go downtown to Saigon, but when we left the base with them, we were armed.
So you took trucks to the other bases?
Yes.
Was that ever concerning for you being off base?
Well, there were 3 of us in a 1.5 ton going to Benoit. The driver had his choice of an M16 or a sidearm, and the other 2 of us, the passengers, always had M16s. We'd load them, but never put anything in the chamber. And we crossed one of the bridges. It was just, we went by, shots started ringing out. You wonder if your training will kick in, whether you can shoot at somebody or not. The driver hit the ditch, bam, we rolled out, bam, and locked and loaded. We was ready and found it, yes, I would if it was necessary. shoot at somebody. But we didn't have to. The shots were a guard that they had on the bridge, Vietnamese guard, shooting at logs and stuff in the water. But he gave us a thrill.
Mm-hmm. Was that the only trouble you guys ran into?
Yeah.
Going out? Yeah. So, if we're not getting too deep, how did that feel when you heard those gunshots?
I was scared. Very concerned, yes. We got to the club of Ben Long. We had a couple of beers. It's okay.
But your training did kick in?
Oh, yes, it does. It did for us, I know.
So, your kind of day-to-day life on the base, what did you guys do to pass the time when you were off duty?
Well, we had several clubs around the base where we could go, relax, have a few beers, and whatever. I was in my barracks. Our barracks were all open bay barracks, and they were basically just poles covered with screen and a roof over it. But so you couldn't see, and they had slats angled up to about waist high. I'm sitting there, mine was the first cube that come in. Well, like I said, it was an open bay barracks, but we used them big wall lockers, stack them together to make sort of a cube, like divide them up, you know. Mine was the first one coming through the door. And you could see through the screen door to the latrine across the street. And when you went in the latrine, and that was the same type building we had. And when you first went in, you went through the shower to get to the latrine. I'm sitting there writing a letter one Sunday. 2 Army dudes come in and said, we're looking for Sergeant so-and-so. They said he's in this barracks. I said, he was. He left last week. He rotated. He's back in the States. Dang, I went to school with him. And they're covered with that red Vietnamese dust, dirt, clay. And he says, and I was drinking a beer. We had a big full-size refrigerator. It was communal. We'd get our beer rations and stick them in there. Everybody shared. So, how'd you get the beer? It's out of the refrigerator. You want one? Yeah. Help yourselves. So they went in, they got a beer, and they sat down, and we started shooting a bull. And one of them looked across the street, and there was a guy taking a shower. What's he doing over there? He's taking a shower. Can we take a shower? Well, sure. That's what it's for. We finished the beer and said, will you watch our weapons? Stack them in the corner there. Put their rifles and their belt with their grenades and stuff on them. They went over across the street there, turned the showers on, and they started with their hats. They did bush hats. It came first. Threw them off, and they just showered, taking their clothes off as they went. Pretty soon, here they come back, wet. Sit down, had another couple of beers with me. They left, and I said, sure glad I ain't in the Army.
What was your beer ration?
I don't remember. It seemed like we had about 4 cases a month, something like that.
4 cases a month per person?
Yeah.
Did you get it all at one time?
Normally not, no. But you pick up a case and stick it in the refrigerator. And we was rationed on the booze also. And that was, I don't remember what that was. It wasn't as generous as the beer was.
But they still gave you a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
How about cigarettes?
That wasn't even rationed. You could get all you wanted to them, if I recall right. But I wasn't smoking at the time.
So what other things did you do for entertainment? You went to the clubs. Were there ever movies, shows?
Oh, yeah, we had movies, nightly movies. We had a base theater. There was a group of GIs formed a band, and they would play the different clubs in the area. Well, my birthday was 22nd of November. I was working the swing shift then, so I got off and went to sleep. Got up the next morning, and there's 12 hours difference. Ohio State was playing Michigan, and Ohio State won. This was early in the morning on my birthday. So that's a good start on my birthday. That evening, I was walking over to one of those clubs where this Air Force group, or veterans group, was playing. And I went by the base theater, and there's all kinds of people lined up out there. So I don't know what they got going on, but I went on over to the club. The leader of the group, he looks around, there's only about 8 of us in there. And normally it was pretty well filled. He said, well, I said, I'm glad to see we got some loyal people here. I said, well, what do you mean loyal? He said, Roy Acuff's over at the base theater. We all looked at each other, got up, so we'll see you later. Why don't you guys go with us, So we went over there. It was in the back of the theater. We got to see Roy Acuff and his USO show, so that was very interesting. My mother was always a big country fan. And rode home, had a good birthday. Buckeyes won, and got to see Roy Acuff, so. The only bad thing about it was Vietnam. Wasn't it?
So you were over there for Thanksgivings and Christmas.
Yeah.
What were the holidays like?
Basically like any other day. I mean, if your day, we had a day and a half week off. We worked 10-hour days. And if it was your time to work, you worked. So I was at work on Christmas morning. It was about noon when the chief of maintenance come in and says, hell of a thing to have to work on Christmas, ain't it? Well, ain't got anything else to do, chief. And he got our boss, he was a senior master, and he wanted to make chief so bad he couldn't see straight. And he got hold of him, he says, what are you doing? He said, well, I split the crew up, let half off Thanksgiving off, and the other half gets off Christmas, and the other half gets off New Year's. He says, every other group in here that works for me, he says, their leaders all called me. He says, they got somebody to answer the phone and people on standby if they're needed. He said, you need to do that too, and why don't you just answer the phone this afternoon? The rest of you guys pack up and get out of here. So. And then I saw the chief, his name was Studley, Walt Studley. And when I was on the Nevada team, I got to run across him again. He was a pretty nice guy there, but working for him was a different story.
So once you got off work, what'd you do Christmas Day?
Probably went to the club, because there's not much else to do.
Right. And not just on the holidays, how'd you keep in touch with your family?
Writing letters. Mail was free for us. It didn't cost us anything to mail. And we could go down to the USO. You had to make arrangements with your family using mail, but you could go to the USO and get a reverse call, charge it to the house and call, which I got to do that. I think 3 or 4 times a year I was over there. But other than that, just mail. A lot of people had little video or little recorders, tape recorders. They'd send cassettes back and forth.
Did you have a tape recorder?
Yeah, it didn't last long though. I mean, you sit there and try to talk and see what's going on and nobody around, you know what I mean? It just didn't work out real well for me.
So you had a son while you were overseas.
Yep.
How'd you find out about that?
Red Cross called. Yeah, I got over there 1st of October. My birthday was 22nd. His was the 24th of November. So I turned 30 years old, so there's 30 years between us.
Huh. So the Red Cross called. Did you get a chance to talk to your wife, or
No, not at that
they
point.
just notified you?
Right.
How long was it before you got to talk to your wife?
I don't really recall. It
Like-
was probably in the vicinity of Christmas, if I recall right.
So a good couple of weeks
Yeah, oh yeah.
afterwards.
Yeah. Probably closer to a month.
How'd that feel, being overseas?
You know, it's hard to describe, I guess. You want to be a part of the family. Holidays always mean so much to you. But there you are, and there's nothing you can do about it, you know, and you miss them. But we lived through it, so. And actually, you get pretty close to the people you're with.
Kind of get a new family?
Yeah. Sort of a temporary family life.
Did you guys celebrate the holidays amongst yourselves?
Oh,
Or
yeah, but as much as you could, you know. Yeah, my dad, they sent me a Christmas package. You remember them little birds, you'd wet the head of them, stood them on a glass, and where they had this little stand, they'd dunk their head and get them a drink. And I set that up Christmas, and I was sitting there in my cube, you know, went to work the next morning, and Mama San's worked right across from my cube. That was where the refrigerator, and it was open so they could work. They come in that night after work, step through. I think every Mama San in the area was sitting in there watching that thing. Everybody, that's so funny. And I guess after they got used to it, one of ours, Mama San's brought her son out, and I gave it to him. So.
how old was he?
Probably 8, somewhere around 8, but he was happy, so.
You said you got passes to go into Saigon.
Yeah.
About how often would you get?
Oh, we could go every night if we wanted.
Oh.
We had a Class A pass, you should. But they had a curfew too. You had to be back by, I think it was 10 o'clock. And you couldn't go down before 6, if I recall right.
What'd you guys do in Saigon?
Oh, you could go sightseeing or bar hopping, do the USO.
What, did you see any memorable sights or anything?
Oh, yeah. The palace, things like that. But actually, when we went as a group, and we just hit a few of the bars normally, because it's a little uneasy when you're in a country you don't know. Well, you know you're at war, and you don't know who's against you and who's not. It's, you know, they all look the same, or close, you know.
Was there any danger going into downtown Saigon?
That's why we went as groups, yes. We had one of the kids that I worked with went downtown one evening by himself, and he found this girl. He decided to go up. He was a single kid. He's going up, spend the night with this girl. She took him upstairs. Guy hit him in the head with a hammer. He was a state wrestling champ from Massachusetts, if I recall right. And he stood up, and the guy hit him again. But when he finally come to then, his wallet, money, everything's gone. So he wandered outside, and MPs picked him up. He told them what had happened, so he's still in his uniform. So they brought him back to the base.
How did that make you guys feel, knowing that the people in Saigon weren't behind you?
That's why we went down as groups. It just was not worth it, really. You didn't go downtown by yourself. Now, during the daylight, like going to the USO or something like that, it wasn't bad. But after dark.
What was your impression of Saigon?
It was a beautiful city, really, but the traffic, there's so many motorcycles, and the big trucks and buses, it was just traffic horrendous, but Saigon itself was a beautiful city.
What was your impression of the Vietnamese people?
Most of them were very nice, but then again, you don't know who you're dealing with, you know what I'm saying? So. Now, in my travels, I've really come to see believe almost everybody in every country I've been in and dealt with are just like we are. They want to take care of their kids, make them better. It's the politicians that causes the trouble.
Okay. Do you have anything you want to add about Vietnam specifically?
Now, you know, one thing, you talk about measurement. Soon after I got there, the C-130s upgraded their systems to a new Doppler radar system. They brought the test equipment they used to set it up into our lab for calibration, one of them from Thompson Newton. And they gave it to me to work on. And there was one test you were supposed to do. You had a sweep start at 0 and at 100 kc, you're supposed to get a blip. And the spectrum analyzer we used to detect that blip was not sensitive enough down at that area, that range. It was much higher than that. So we had a bunch of old equipment sitting in the back of the lab. And I went back there, one of them was an old Marconi spectrum analyzer. And I looked at it, and it had the range I needed to calibrate down to that low. So I talked with the boss. He said, yeah, set it up, measure it out. And as long as it works there, and you can calibrate it there, then use it to set it up. So I did. It was 3 weeks or so later, this guy come in from 7th Air Force and wanted to talk with me. Whoever does that, that's the guy I want to see. He said, how come nobody in this country can calibrate this? Nobody over here in the Pacific can calibrate them things, and you're doing it, and yours is working fine. So I showed him what it was doing. Well, I ended up doing them from all over the country. They shipped them all to us because we was the only one that had that one piece of equipment.
How old was that piece of equipment?
It was ancient. It was, I was there in the 70s. It was, I would say, late 50s, early 60s. It was way outdated, but it did the job for that.
Huh. So they upgraded the radar, but they didn't have the equipment to test it.
No.
Developed yet. Did you get any recognition for figuring out how to test this equipment?
No, not really. Just that's what our job was, you know. Just didn't need any. It just was funny the way it happened.
Okay. So did you know ahead of time when you were going to get sent back home from Vietnam, or
Oh yeah.
how far in advance did you know when your last day would be?
Oh, I knew 3 months or so in advance where I was going to go. But until they could get the flight schedule in, you didn't know your dates. I probably knew about 2 weeks before the exact date I was leaving.
How'd you feel knowing that you were leaving?
I knew it was coming. I was happy. I'm ready to go.
Now, did you go over as a unit or go over independently?
Independently. Yeah.
So when you left, some of your friends stayed behind?
Oh yeah. Yep. I left from Keesler, went to Thompson Newton, and I left my friends there at Keesler, and made new ones at Thompson Newton. I left them when I went to D.C. But then on through my career, I run across other people. One of the guys I was stationed with now lives up in New Carlisle. So I see Hal every now and then, but I haven't seen him for a while. He was talking about moving to upstate New York, and maybe he has.
How'd your family feel about knowing that you were coming home? Did they know when you were coming?
Yeah. Yeah. I wrote my wife a letter, says, here's the way it is. I flew from Thompson Newton to the Philippines, then on into Travis Air Force Base in California. and then get a bus down to Frisco and flight on home. So if everything goes, I'll be in Columbus this flight. I will let you know. I fly from Tan Son Nhut to Clark Air Base in the Philippines. They unload us all. Tell us after we get in the terminal, we don't have a flight crew for you. You're going to spend the night here. So needless to say, the whole schedule was messed up. And I couldn't get a hold of my wife till I got to San Francisco. When I got my flights there, I called my mom. Well, I called my wife first, no answer. Called my mom, no answer. So I called my wife's mom. She answered. Said, well, they're all down at the airport waiting for you. Where are you? I'm in San Francisco. Says, I will be there at such and such a time. So, yeah, there were some difficulties, but we worked them out.
So that was a civilian flight from San Francisco?
Yes,
Did you wear your uniform?
yes.
Did you get any reaction?
No. See, I turned 30 over there. I wasn't a kid, and like the kids in Nam, they had a problem with the drugs dealers trying to sell them, hit on them, you know what I mean? But I never had that problem because I was older. Us older people didn't. If you want to call 30 old, you know. But no, I never had a problem. And I know a lot of people did, but it just didn't.
So your whole family was there at the airport?
Oh, yeah.
Waiting for you? What was that like?
Great. Yeah, look forward to that. I did, we could take 10 days while you was in Nam and go to Hawaii or Australia or some of the other countries. And my wife says, no, you come home. So I did come home in the spring. And after getting home, travel time, so I spent about a week at home. The rest was travel too. But yeah, that was great. And getting on that plane to leave that time was harder than it was to leave the first time. Getting home was just outstanding.
So that was the first time you got to see your son?
Yeah,
Was
when I
that
come
spring,
home,
when you were on leave?
that 10-day leave. And that leave was not charged to us. That was free time, so.
Yeah.
But then when I did finally come home, there was one of my high school buddies was stationed there also. And I was on my way to the airport, and he said, here, drop this in the mail for me. And I did. I get home, and his wife's there. My wife and I went to visit with her, and she said, you seen Larry? Yeah, I saw him. She says, I mailed a letter for him. I said, well, I thought I would just carried it to you. Just never even thought about it, getting home before the letter did, you know.
So I'm sure your family was happy to see you.
Oh, yeah.
What about back in Marion? What was the town like coming home?
Oh, there was nothing special, nothing different. Just, I was home, you know. 'Cause at that point, I'd been in, this was my third enlistment then, so I'd been in just about 10 years. And most of the kids I went to school with, just lost touch with, you know. So there was no big deal, it was just coming back to family.
Yeah, I'm curious. So you were in the middle of enlistment. Did you consider after Vietnam not re-enlisting?
No. No, when I went back in and then re-enlisted, and I did that in Panama, but yeah, I got 12 years in now, there's no sense in considering not going, you know. Because 20 to retire, I ended up at 27, but no, I enjoyed my job too. It was neat.
So when did you finally decide to get out of the Air Force?
Well, That was a tough decision because I had finally made chief. And I ended up at SAC headquarters off at Air Force Base. It was a 3-year control tour. I was in charge of all the SACS 23 Cal Labs. And I kind of wanted to stay. The colonel asked me to extend see what you need to do to extend your tour here. So I called the chiefs group and they said, don't even try. You're out of there. Said, Ramstein Air Base in Germany is coming open. We need a chief over there. He says, you're number 3 on the list. Who's 1 and 2? So they told me. So I called both of them. Yep, we're out. We'll retire. So I said, okay, if they retire, that's me, you know. My son was just getting ready to start 10th grade. And he was playing basketball, and he didn't want to go overseas, play over there. He was hoping for a scholarship or something. So we sat down and talked about it. I said, okay, I guess maybe this is time to just get out. So it was a family decision. We did. Yeah.
So, what'd you do when you got out?
Actually, like I said, I was doing the calibration stuff, and when I got out, I came to work here at Wright Pat as a contractor, working on the F-16 calibration support. And being how when I was at SAC headquarters, I was working on the B-1 calibration support. It was just a switch aircraft because I found out the companies were the same. But, you know, so I didn't really have a big transition from military to civilian. It was just wearing civilian clothes. I was still doing the same job essentially.
How many more years did you stay working at Wright Pat?
I worked with that company for about 4. They lost a contract. I went to another company, picked it up here. I went with them, stayed at the same job. But then when I worked at Newark Air Force Station in aerospace metrology program, the director of metrology was a friend, and he was working out at Mound running their Cal lab. And he contacted me, and we met, and he said, I want you to come out and come to work for me. So I went out there and tried to help them set up. I was out there 4 years. And they had absolutely no program. They were calibrating, but no real control over what they was doing. We was getting that straightened up. And then, well, Sal McKnight was his name. He passed away. Next guy that they put in charge didn't have a clue about metrology, so he kind of did away with a lot of things. Then they decided to close Mound, so I got laid off. Ended up going, well, I spent 1 year out here at the Country Club in the North cutting the grass.
Huh.
That was fun. And then I worked for several months in Walmart developing pictures. So, went to work in Cincinnati 3 days a week for calibration. And then I got a call from Newark. They wanted me to come over there and write procedures. Well, that's something I've never done, so I went over and did that for 2 years. Then this lab, calibration lab here, went contract. And they contacted me, and I come over here and went to work for them. And when I finally retired, I was there about 5 years, and I finally retired, I was running the quality program for them.
Huh. So, I think I know the answer to this, but you would say your training in the military translated directly to what you did as a civilian?
Absolutely, yeah. But I mean, you know, that when you get into precision instrument stuff, like, well, there at AGMC, they had a 10,000 pound weight that was hung on springs made out of beryllium. And that way it took off all they could put level meters on there, and they would get no vibration from there if that spring would take care of it. They were doing these recording meters one Friday, and they set these off onto the floor and went home and forgot to turn them off. They'd finished their calibration, and they just set them off, forgot to turn them off. They come in Monday and they got all these. They had earthquakes in Italy. They picked it up there in Newark, Ohio. That's how sensitive things were.
Wow. So it's a highly, highly specialized field.
While I was there, all of us, all the military, we had about 2,500 people on the base. There was only about 70 military. And those of us in the calibration world, they made us, say, tour guides, take them through, show people what we did in the Air Force Standards Lab. And one of the things way down in the basement, where they was on bedrock for the most solid foundation they could get, they'd calibrate gauge blocks. These blocks are smooth to within millions of inches. As a matter of fact, they're so smooth, we have to use them, you get the different thicknesses, and then you ring them together, slide them wrong, and that way, when you do that, you can't pull them apart. You got to bag them off, but they are so, they are refined so much, so that they actually will grow together. The atoms will intermingle. Once that happens, you never get them apart. But we'd take people down and show them this, and they'd have a standard gauge block, and then the one that's calibrating, and a meter up here had a needle on it, and zero was the same reading, whatever they're doing. And then it was millionths of an inch off, plus or minus, and they'd note that. You could set in there, and they could have that set up and zero the meter, turn the light on, so across the way there, that light, the heat from that light would show. And they don't grow at the same. You could see the difference. And, they had a sound lab. This lab had a triangular foam coming out like a pyramid, fastened to the wall all the way around this thing. They took tours in there, and you take people and you say, get a hold of something, we're going to turn the lights out. Because if you don't get a hold of something, you'll fall. So you get a hold of something, turn the lights out, there is no sound. You can hear the blood run through your veins. Talk about strange.
Huh. That messes with your balance, or?
Yeah. Well, there's no sense of balance. It's pitch black. Because it's way down the middle of the building, And when they shut, it's like a big vault when they shut that door. Whoa. But some of the measurements we do. For the satellites, tracking, for missiles, all this stuff, we had, I don't know if you ever heard of the atomic clock?
Yeah.
We had that in there, and we carried that. That was one of our jobs, along with evaluating the labs, the operation of the labs. And you would go all over the world with that clock and sit there and put their clocks, using ours, to time within 10 millionths of a second. And these things are so stable that that's good for at least 2 years before they will get out. Most of the timing they needed within 100 microseconds. And that would last for at least a year, maybe 2. But the reason they do that, if you're tracking things and you're getting radar signals or whatever from 3 different places, 4 different places, then you need to know the precise time you took that so they can tell exactly where it was, knowing where these different ones are. That's what led to the GPS right now that everybody uses.
Mhm.
And when the GPS come into being, and we were there at the start of that,
Really?
and we had a big antenna up on top of the building. And the GPS turned on one of them new receivers using the GPS system, and within several days, they would be within 40 microseconds. So that's well within the 100 most of them required, so we didn't have to travel anymore. Not with the clock, but
Curious, were you guys aware of kind of the potential of GPSs when it first came out?
no, I don't think any of us dreamed this. Yeah, we knew that it would really help guidance for aircraft and stuff. I don't think any of us ever dreamt about having one set on the dash of your car.
How big were the first receivers?
They weren't all that big. There's a standard width, I think it's 19 inches, for rack mounted and stuff. And they were that standard lift, only about so thick. But basically, if you got a frequency counter and you've got two signals coming in, you can measure the difference to the time between the two of them, and they hook them together to tell from these different satellites. But yeah, it's the metrology field it's a very interesting field. Some of the stuff that's done.
Okay. So you talked about this a little bit, in contact with people that you were in with. You stay in touch with people?
There's some, but we've kind of drifted apart over the years. Like I've been out since '86. Now there's two of them. One of the guys I worked for at Aviano. Well, I went from Aviano to the Aerospace Guidance and Metrology Center. And I spent my 3 years there, went to the Azores, and I called back for some information back to the eval branch. And he answered the phone. What are you doing there? He said, I'm running the place now. I said, I wish you and Brenda was here, you know. Yeah. Says, we're thinking about putting in for it again, but we don't know. You know. I said, talk to them. I want to see you here, and if you decide to, let me know when your paperwork's in. So I talked with the family. Yeah, we'd like to go back. I said, well, you know, I'll be traveling again. Yeah, but we like Newark. So, okay. So I put in for it. Called Frank. He says, okay. And it wasn't 2 weeks. And I got the phone call from assignment, you're going to Newark. And he's there, and I'm still in touch with him. We get emails back and forth every now and then, and he lives near D.C. And Tom Golden was a guy I was stationed with at D.C. when I was there. I went from there to Aviano. He followed me to Aviano, so him and his family, we keep in touch. But that's about it anymore on a regular basis. Well, one of the guys over at Aviano retired over there in Newark. He went to the team and then retired. So getting hold of him now and then. And some of the people that still live over there, that work there, that I work with over there.
So obviously you joined a veterans organization.
Yep.
Why'd you join the VFW?
I was a member of I belonged to the Legion soon after I got back to Panama. But when I was on that evaluation team, there's a VFW in Newark, Ohio. And there were 7 of us sitting in the office one day, and this Chuck Skidmore come in. He was a member of the VFW, and he was a civil service guy working there. And he walked in, he says, you guys, you all been over Vietnam, Thailand, right? You know, we're all stationed over there. Here's an application, fill them out. You belong to the VFW. And Chuck was a little mild-mannered guy. And he was a good guy, but mild-mannered. You'd never figure him to be a hero of anything. found out when I got to know him, he was World War II. You heard about the glider pilots who used to, that was Chuck. Let's take them up, send them out, catch the currents, hope they could get back. So, my goodness. See, you don't really know people just from looking at them. You need to get to know people.
So do you think things like the VFW and the American Legion are good for
Oh,
veterans?
absolutely. They do a lot of work for the veterans. We've done a lot here. I mean, the American flags you see up and down the streets here in Heber Heights for 4th of July, the big holidays, we put them all up there, this post. This post put a American flag and a Pledge of Allegiance flag in every classroom in Heber Heights. We provide the flags for all the office buildings in Heber Heights. Post office, fire department, city buildings. So yeah, we do a lot. Not to mention all the, helping out with the civic organizations, people, Christmas baskets, toys for kids. We run our own program here. And most of the VFWs are involved, and the Legions are involved in that. AMVETS gets involved. But this is primarily, I know more about this because this is my home. Yeah. I've been the commander here twice. I was a quartermaster or finance officer for 8 years. When we had the county council, I went through those chairs. I was county council commander for a term. And I did the same thing for the district. I was district commander here. That's been 12 years ago now. But we've accomplished a lot in helping primarily veterans, their families, and other people too. We do hospital visits, a lot to the VA.
Okay, so just got a few last general reflections. How do you think that your military experience affected your life?
Well, I always wanted to travel. That's another reason I joined the Air Force. And being in the military and the jobs I've had, I've been in all 50 states and 40-some countries. So I got to travel and see a lot, and they paid me to do it. But I took a tour out of Nairobi on one of the microbuses, little VW microbus. We went out into the Nairobi National Park. They had a big thing up across the top. Welcome to Nairobi National Park. The big sign over here says, "Stay in the vehicle. Failure to do so may result in death." Because the animals are wild. They're not tied up. And they stopped the bus, and we got pictures of a lion eating a zebra, and you can see that outline of Nairobi in the background.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah. I've seen sea lions up in Alaska, out in Shimei, Alaska. Been to Australia a couple of times. See, we went go to Woomera, Australia is where the lab was over there. And that's right on the edge of the outback. So in their housing they got there in Woomera, they use overnight sprinkler systems to water their lawns. And you can go walking down the street and see the kangaroos over there getting water off the lawns. So yeah, I've had some experiences. And the Air Force did that, so. Yeah, I don't regret it at all. And I think everybody should serve anyhow. At least to serve, you know. I told both my boys, my oldest boy went Air Force, he spent 6 years, decided it wasn't for him. My youngest boy, I think I dropped him on the head or something, he went Navy. But he retired, so.
He retired from the Navy.
So I'm proud of them both.
What's a life lesson you learned in the military?
I don't know. I guess you just want to live your life to the fullest. So I had the opportunity to do so many things and seen so much, and you just, because I don't know how much longer I got here on this world, but if the Lord takes me right now, I got no complaints. I mean, but I don't want to go yet. I'm still having too much fun. So. But yeah, I guess just live life to the fullest because you only get one chance.
So if you can give one message, what message would you give to younger veterans?
Stick with it. I was like in Vietnam. They put me in charge of 6, 7 new guys to come in for training. And they came and says, some of these rules we got in the Air Force are stupid. Just plain stupid. It's all right. So we want you to help us change whatever, Okay, I'll help you change them. But in the meantime, you're going to follow them, whether they're stupid or not. So and I think a lot of them, when I left, because they were still there, they said, you're right. You just got to stick with it. If you don't like what it is, work to change it. But in the meantime, live by it.
Do you have anything else you want to add?
No, can't think of a thing now.
All right.
Good.
I think that's a good interview.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
You're more than welcome.